So as I said earlier, before I was a feminist, I was a feminist. I was definitely a feminist before I knew what the term was. I felt very aligned with those women until I didn't. I did more reading. I started complicating my own relationship and my understandings of feminism and of structural oppression just more generally. And I started realizing that, most of the feminists I was learning about in school were white women. And of course, that just fed into the anger. Why weren't great, Black or Indigenous or other women of color, feminist movements and feminists being covered in my classes? Why weren't we learning about queer feminists, trans feminists? Women's suffrage is something we talk about a lot, and it's a very important movement in this country. But of course, Indigenous women and peoples were not given those same rights until decades later. So essentially, the feminism that was taught to me early on wasn't nuanced enough or complicated enough for me. And not only was I angry at the structural issues we were all facing, I became angry at the mainstream feminist movements as well for ignoring people like me, a Black Muslim woman, and also many others. So, as I ventured into university, I started doing my own reading. I was always, surrounded by women who encouraged me to think for myself. And I fell into the world of great Black feminist thinkers like Audre Lorde and bell hooks, and, more broadly fell into the world of womanism, which is a term not many people know, and many Black women are familiar with, but kind of outside of that, not many people know. But it was a term coined by Alice Walker. And it's basically a movement that recognizes the complexities of being both Black and a woman. So, I think a lot of Black women and girls really early on realized that we're fighting two battles at the same time: racism and sexism, and all the other isms that you might be facing, depending on your identities. And I stumbled across Kimberly Crenshaw, she gave me the vocabulary I think that I was looking for. She's a Black woman, a lawyer, and an academic, which I was so grateful to have met when I graduated from Osgoode. She was getting an honorary degree at the same time. She coined the term that we know all and we use now very broadly, intersectionality. She coined it over 30 years ago. And that's really where I landed in my own feminist journey. Intersectionality essentially looks at how different overlapping identities can compound the inequalities you face. Like Karen mentioned earlier, generally women in Canada get paid 89 cents to the dollar, but when you break that down even more, BIPOC women get paid 67 cents to the dollar, and women with disabilities get paid 59 cents to the dollar. So I was still very angry, but I finally was glad to have kind of the vocabulary to express what I had been thinking and feeling for so long. To complicate things even further, and this is how the compounding works, I'm also a Muslim woman. And being a young girl in the post 9/11 era, I was about 9 years old when 9/11 happened, very formative years. So I literally grew up with constant political rhetoric, media commentary that said women's rights and my faith were incompatible, that you couldn't be both a Muslim and a feminist. And of course, that never sat right with me because that's where I draw a lot of my own feminism. My mom draws a lot of her feminism from Islam, and so did her mom, and so forth. So that just didn't make sense to me. And again, my anger was not only at the issues we were facing more broadly, but the mainstream feminist movements for, on one hand, promoting, the choice of what to wear. But for some reason, when it came to Muslim women's choice of what to wear, it was oppressive and anti-woman. So I guess this type of thinking definitely has real and tangible effects and harmful effects on Muslim women everywhere. So again, the mainstream feminism movement left me feeling alienated and angry. And, as Audre Lorde said, in this process that I am going through right now in this stage, in terms of like reclaiming my anger, Audre Lorde, who's a queer Black feminist thinker, said decades ago, anger is loaded with information and energy. And I urge everyone to read The Uses of Anger by Audre Lorde. The speech was important for me in reclaiming the term anger, especially how women generally, but also Black women specifically, are dismissed often for showing emotion and being angry at things we have very valid reasons to be angry about. So, of course, the topic today is about, the future of feminism. And I really do not believe there can be a future or a present feminism without embracing intersectionality. And true intersectionality means considering and empowering the voices of women, trans women, immigrant women, working class women, Muslim women, BIPOC women, women with disabilities, women who are neurodivergent, older women, all women. And in terms of, I guess, a very tangible or guiding questions that we can all ask ourselves is, who is my feminism for? When I'm speaking up at work, for example, who do I have in mind? Who am I speaking to and finding solutions? Whose voices am I empowering? Whose voices are missing? What does my workplace actually look like? Because when we start excluding women passively or actively, then your feminism is actually perpetuating systems of harm. So that's my goal from here on out. And that's where I'm at, like as a lawyer, but also as a woman, as to embrace feminism for all women. And, that nuance is important. I remember that I am also staying attuned to where I am privileged, because I do hold a lot of privilege. And yeah, feminism in the future and the present can't exist without an intersectional lens and the nuance that lens requires.